Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday Morning and the Old Cookbook Show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook published in 1910 in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I was having a little bit of trouble with the title. I was putting a Quebecois or Canadian French twang to it, and that's not how it's said at all. So I called one of my cousins who's from Louisiana, and she told me that it's called...
The pronunciation of the word is picayune. Picayune.
Picayunes. Picayunes Creole Cookbook. And the recipe we're going to do out of it today is a molasses cake. And this is a pretty straightforward recipe. There's a few hiccups in the way that it's worded, but I think we'll be able to get through it fairly simply. So I've got some butter here that's melted, and I'm going to put that into the stand mixer. Next up, it says to use baking powder or baking soda, either one, and dissolve that in a little bit of boiling water. So I've boiled up a little bit of water. We'll dissolve that and then mix it into the Louisiana molasses. And I'm not sure how much you need to mix this in because the next stop is to cream the molasses with the butter and to bring it all together that way in the mixer. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this into the mixer. Now I'm cheating because I don't have New Orleans molasses, but I think we'll get the job done. That's coming along nicely. One of the last things we have to add into the cake are these egg whites beaten stiff. So I'm going to do that right now so we're ready to go. Okay, those look good. So next into this mixer, I'm going to put the egg yolks, and I've just given them a go through with a fork just to beat them up a little bit. And then slowly in with some hot milk. Now it says we beat in the flour, and I know this would be done by hand. Completely done by hand. Someone with a wooden spoon in the kitchen toiling, which is probably why the butter was melted and hot and the milk was called for to be hot, just to make this whole mixing a little bit easier with a wooden spoon. I just don't have enough time in my day to do this. So the flour goes in, and the recipe says to beat the flour in until light and smooth, so I have to imagine they weren't terribly worried about overbeating with this cake. Next into the mixer are the spices, and the first in is ginger. Then we have some cloves, and the recipe gives you an option of cinnamon or cloves. I'm going to add the cinnamon as well. This is mixed together really nicely. It's a pretty nice batter. And it just says to mix in the egg whites. It doesn't say to fold them in. I'm going to do my best to fold them in because that's just best practice. Fold in the next ones. I love cooking, but there are a few things in the kitchen that I really don't like doing, and one of them is folding in egg whites, but I think I've got it done. Next is to baking. The oven is preheated to a moderate heat. That's the instruction. And it tells me to put it in a large, shallow cake pan, but not exactly what size. So I've got this one, I've buttered it, and I've put a parchment sling on it so that it's easy to get out at the end. We'll just pour this in, get it in the oven, and see what happens. Just smooth it out into the corners a little bit, make it kind of even. Don't need the C47s anymore, and off we go. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends.
So,
Cake.
yeah,
I like cake.
It's a molasses spice cake, but it's a little light on the spices, I think.
Okay, well, but I like molasses, so
Molasses.
so it is all molasses. So
Yeah.
I happen to like molasses. I'm okay with it.
Mhm.
It's a molasses cake. There's nothing else is coming out in that flavor.
None of the spices are coming
No,
through.
but it is. I mean, it's a classic kind of spice cake that's very dense.
It's dense, but
It's moist, but it's dense.
it is moist and it's dense. But I'm not getting any of the ginger or the cloves or the cinnamon.
Nope.
No, it's full on. Now, that could change depending on what level of molasses you use.
Mmm.
I used cooking molasses. If you used a fancy molasses, lighter flavored molasses, you might get more of the spices. Yeah, I think you need to probably double or triple the amount of spice in it to get that to come through.
I think it'd probably do really well with some kind of a nut, like a pecan or something in it as well.
Mm-hmm. But as a base molasses cake, I mean, it's called molasses cake. I'm saying molasses spice cake, but the title is clearly molasses cake. So it delivers on what it promised. It's a molasses cake. If you don't like the molasses,
This is not for you.
this is not for you.
No.
I
But
kind of do really enjoy it.
it is a lovely base cake. I think you
Yeah.
can do a lot of stuff with it. Nuts. I think apricots would actually go really nicely in it.
Mhm.
There's always the traditional. You could put dates
You
in
could
it,
put dates in it,
but you know you don't have to.
I think a brighter, more acidic fruit.
Yeah,
Would-
pineapple would be interesting. I don't know if it'd go or not though. I'd have to
Yeah.
try that out.
But
But candied, like a dried candy.
a dried candied, because it would elevate and sort of cut through some of the molasses a little bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so not a loser.
But you know,
But
like many things, make it your own, tweak it.
Yeah. And I'm sure that anyone who was doing this out of that cookbook would have made it their own at home anyway. So, thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.